So today is the last day for conference, and it's over. And I wanted to share before the end of the day some insightful thoughts that I've gathered, especially about a specific talk by Todd Christopherson. And what he said reminded me a lot about how a voluntary society can be created, and it is possible. And we need not to look any further than within our own church, and see and recognize that our church is a government, is the government of Christ, and it's a voluntary government. This government is not founded upon force, violence, and coercion, but it's founded on love and persuasion. No one is forced or obligated to become a member of this church. Our soldiers, the soldiers of the Lord, our soldiers are missionaries, and they go out there persuading they're armed with the only weapon of the spoken word. That's the only arm that they are armed with. And they are not where we don't deploy them out there to kill and murder, but we deploy them out there to build and edify others and invite them into Christ. The only weapons in their arsenals are the scriptures, and manuals and pamphlets and just articles and stuff. So the church is a government, and it's a government of Christ. Christopherson said that it's the kingdom of God on earth, and I'll play a few snippets for you, so you can better understand his talk, and I'll explain it to you and give a few commentaries. So we know that God's ultimate purpose is our progress, and that's one of the church's objectives. Todd also said about one cannot fully achieve many things in isolation, rather than in a collective group. Now, the difference between this collective government and other bad collective governments such as socialism and etc. is that this is a voluntary collectivism where we voluntarily gather together and share our resources, and our time to edify each other, to bring each other into Christ, and also to provide help for the needy. We have to admit that every single government on the face of the earth is founded upon force, violence, and coercion. So no government, no ruler present today on the face of the world, of the planet, is a righteous ruler. Why? Because they're all founded upon taxes. And as we learn in the Book of Mormon, Ether 10:5, let me pull it up. Taxes are not looked well in the eyes of the Lord. And it says, "And it came to pass that Rib Lakish did not do that which was right in the sight of the Lord, for he did have many wives and concubines, and did lay that upon men's shoulders which was grievous to be borne. Yea, he did tax them with heavy taxes, and with the taxes he did build many spacious buildings." Buildings such as buildings for the Congress, the White House, and all these that exist today in the U.S. government, for example. And he did erect him an exceedingly beautiful throne, and he did build many prisons, and whoso will not be subject unto taxes, he did cast into prison. You obviously can't have taxes and not have prisons. One needs the other. It would be useless to require taxes and not have prisons, because it wouldn't make sense. Prison is the actual threat for the taxpayer, the tax cattle. And whoso will not be subject unto taxes, he did cast into prison. And whoso was not able to pay taxes, he did cast into prison. And he did cause that they should labor continually for their support. So in other words, they were enslaved. And whoso refused to labor, he did cause to be put to death. Who refused to cooperate with the slavery, they were put to death. So yeah, that's where we are today. So no government in the face of the globe is fit to exist, because they're all founded upon force, violence, and coercion, and taxes, which we already learned in Ether 10:5, is not looked well in the eyes of the Lord. So if we already agree with the fact that no ruler, no government present today is fit to exist, then how would society work? Who would build the roads? Who would help the needy and the poor? Who would pay for services to deter crime, such as law enforcement? Who will pay firefighters? What about EMTs, medical response, medical, and so forth? Who will do all this, if not government? So that's a very good question. And Elder Todd Christopherson, he addresses some of these in his talk. And like I said, we need not to look much further than within our own church. We're a very organized church. We're a very organized government. And I'm sure that if the government which we are subject to didn't exist, we would still be organized in the same way, and we would be self-reliant like we are today. And we would actually be more prosperous, and we would be also more free to share the gospel with all peoples in the face of the planet. We wouldn't have to meet all kinds of permits, visa requirements, travel requirements. Many countries don't even let us in to proselyte, and so forth. Also, we wouldn't have to comply with the requirements of the government for our tax exempt status. As you may already know, we are required. Every single church is required to meet certain standards, certain requirements set forth by the government in order to remain tax exempt. So as you can see, we really don't have freedom of religion, because if we don't meet some of those requirements and we don't fit the definition of a public place of worship, then we can be considered, instead of a public place of worship, a private business. So if the church is categorized as a private business, then we will be taxed at the full extent. So we have to be careful as a church to make sure we fit those requirements. Now, that can be a very slippery slope, because anything that we do as a church or say as a church that's frowned upon by the government can bring their attention to us and even accuse us of being some type of even terrorized group or so forth. So we can't be open about many of the things that the government is wrong about. So as a church, we can't talk about these things. And leadership, it's obvious that they can't talk about this. Leaders up in the church, higher into the church. But we as members, as just everyday people, and as citizens, we have that opportunity, that chance, that right to talk and voice our opinions and share with others what we think. So I'm gonna cut this video now, and I'll do the second part in a moment with the snippets of Todd Christopherson.